you hate it now, but wait till you drive it.
The Kibbe and Friends Show.
What it is, bro?
Featuring Rob Kibbe.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Justin Corndog Cornett.
New guy's in the corner puking his guts out.
And show producer Bernie McPartland.
This is the DJ 3000, and it has 3 distinct varieties of inane chatter.
Talking cars.
Do you feel this vehicle is safe for highway travel?
Yes, I do.
Diving deep on the topics that matter most.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this.
And totally redeem yourself.
And the Dukes of Hazzard. Available in iTunes, Stitcher, and whatever else it is you listen on.
Turn up the volume.
The Kibbe and Friends Show.
Kibbe and Friends Show, episode number 111. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. Patreon supporters, send in your Q&A questions if you have not received notice that our May Patreon show is already out. Hopefully that all made sense. Once a month, we do a show just for Patreon supporters. It's a Q&A show. You can ask anything you want. Last month, we revealed some interesting information. If you could read the tea leaves here, you may not have heard some sponsors this month. We kind of explained that in the April Patreon show, but you can send in anything that you like, and we'll answer that there. This has been a record month for us for new Patreon supporters, so thank you for that, and we will get that out. You can go to, patreon.com/KF show if you'd like to get signed up and get your questions in, and the month of June is going to be pretty cool, too. Well, anyway, this is a little bonus show that we're going to put out this week. We're technically not on the clock this week. Bernie's on vacation, and frankly, Bernie's the only guy that works, right? So this is Memorial Day week that's coming up. I'm hoping to get to Warren Customs to meet Nathan and pick up my General Lee and maybe go do something else with it before I bring home. There's a lot of stuff going on, but I know that you look forward to these shows, and frankly, I do too. We all do. We love making these things and putting them out. So this is a little bit of a bonus show to tide you over until the first week of June. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the field, because our man Bernie, even though he's on vacation, did call in. He's that dedicated. He's at the National Corvette Museum, so we'll bring you that. And then the second thing I'm going to do is run you an interview that I did in 2012 on the Muscle Car Place. And this was before the Kibbe and Friends show. This was before the Kibbe and Finnegan show. This was before I knew there was a Corndog. This was back when I was just a guy trying to geek out on the General Lee and abuse my Muscle Car Place show to fulfill that geekness. Follow me here? I'm sure you do. I interviewed a guy named John Burns. I did not know him, but he had listed on eBay General Lee number 51 from the 2005 Dukes of Hazzard movie. I think it was the last car put together by A.J. Thrasher, and he restored it back to driving status. Now, if you know that movie well, there's the last jump of the movie is at the courthouse. That jump was done initially with a car with the driver, and I believe that's this car. Yeah, I think that is this car. Now, I'm going to do something I normally don't do, but I'm actually going to read my own article that I read when I put this whole thing together, because this car has some interesting history. I remember doing this interview, but this was, like 7 years ago. So here's what I wrote, and here's what you probably need to know about it. John's car has the unique designation as the only General used in the 2005 movie that made a man jump. The rest are all launched with a catapult. And his car is also the one featured as the #1 most recognizable car in a 2008 issue of Hot Rod magazine. During the interview, John shared with how he came to get his General Lee in the first place, what kind of shape it was in, and just how much restoration work would be done. John's car was the last built by the famed General Lee builder A.J. Thrasher, who had also worked on the Dukes TV show. That's the guy who made the wide push bar, among other things. And unlike TV show cars, A.J. built this General Lee to fly and survive. He plated the frame rails, tied everything together with a cage and bars, and built a cockpit for the driver that would allow as safe a flight as possible. AJ even removed the dash, which drivers would commonly bang their knees on upon landing, and welded their doors shut. mainly because his roll cage blocked any realistic use of the driver's foot anyway. This is like a NASCAR cage. That's right, the Generally actually did have a door welded shut, and as far as John knows, this is the only screen-used car to ever wear that honor. So if you want to go read the whole write-up there, including how it was used in an episode of Chad Vader, where Chad drives the Generally, that was episode 141 of the Muscle Car Place, but we'll roll the whole interview for you just after Bernie at the Corvette Museum. Well, speaking of Bernie at the Corvette Museum, let's go to Bernie at the Corvette Museum. We now go live to our man in the field, Bernie McPartland, at the National Corvette Museum. Bernie, I have queued up the helicopter. You may not be able to hear the helicopter, even though you're in the helicopter, over the cars on the NCM Raceway that you are outside reviewing. Bernie, are you there? Can you hear us?
Rob, hovering in the Kibbe and Friends helicopter. I hear you, and I'm seeing great sights. This is a fantastic opportunity. I wish you were here.
Yes, I did get a call from our bank today alerting me that you were on a trip. Was not aware. Something about a limit reached by 8 a.m. I went ahead and turned it back on, but I don't know what you're doing. I would encourage you to stop.
Well, the moment you say it's going to be a light show week and we may do some different things, I'm out the door. You know that.
Yes.
We have wound up in Bowling Green, Kentucky at the National Corvette Museum, as you have mentioned, and the track, I think you can hear maybe across the street from me. They have a motorcycle event going on today, so a lot of high-powered bikes there. But we have just taken the tour of the museum and the facilities, and if you are a Corvette enthusiast at all, this is your pilgrimage point, and a lot of people I know have already been here or wanted to come here, so put that on your itinerary. It is worth the time.
Interesting enough, so on the Ultimate Streetcar podcast, which we do here on the network, not this show, but on this network, NCM, that speedway there, is almost a staple in Ultimate Streetcar anymore. They go there every year. They have a lot of other events there. I believe Holly LS Fest is now there, or segments of it are. And I went through the museum several years ago when it was a stop on the Hot Rod Power Tour, and before the sinkhole happened. I vaguely remember it. We only had 30 minutes to see the whole thing. Is the area right inside the front door? If you're a new Corvette owner and you wish, can you pick up your car there? Is that called the nursery? Is that right?
They did not use the term nursery with the guide that we had. It was called the delivery area, and there are about 4 cars ready for delivery in that area today as we were walking through. You walk in, and it's kind of a hallway-ish, corridor-ish is a better word, that kind of sits between the Corvette Cafe and the gift shop and some other entities inside the building. But the Corvettes are there and ready. One person was there taking the tour with this salesperson, picking up his blue Corvette. So cool. Quite an exciting time.
Well, what's the tour like? I have never done the actual tour. I've run through there looking at kind of stuff I wanted to see quickly, but I've never done the real tour. And you have now done this.
I have, and it was very informative. I wanted to do the guided tour because they know all the facts and they can run you through the exhibit very efficiently. And that's what happened. We saw the early development of the Corvette from 1953 through present day. They have laid it all very well out into a timeline showing some very, very rare Corvettes, some very historical footage, including a fact that I didn't know, that we're standing next to the plant also. The museum, the racetrack, and the Corvette factory are all kind of in one area here in Bowling Green. And I didn't know that this was the 3rd Corvette factory that General Motors built, but in fact it is, and they've invested a lot of time and money updating the factory next door to us here. So it's not open for tours right now, but they're spending $400 million, I believe, in upgrading that facility.
That sounds better.
And yeah, I was confusing square footage with dollars, but you can now put those dollars in those square footages.
That's probably like how the government does, like $400,000 is a toilet seat at in the government and inside GM.
That's probably true, yes. So they've made a significant investment in the factory next door to us here, and so it's closed to tours. They've updated the paint booth facilities. He was giving numbers and square footage. So it's going to be about 1.5 million square feet when all is said and done, and things are back open over there for the new generation of Vette, the C8, which the rumor is, I don't think I'm telling any fibs out of school here, but that Corvette will be the production version of the mid-engine Corvette. Quite exciting.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what that looks like. The spy photos haven't really received lovingly warm thoughts. They've certainly received a lot of interest, and the way that they do spy cars, really production cars, especially to avoid the press, is that they doctor them up. They put wraps on them that are kind of black and white checkered color. Sometimes they'll put fake panels underneath them just so they look different. But the spy photos right now look kind of like a modern day, the new Acura NSX is what they kind of look like. So I'll be interested to see how American it looks, how Chevy it looks. That museum, though, is unique, but that's not where they actually manufacture the Corvette, right? That's up the road. When you said that was the third plant, where were the first and the second?
I knew you were going to ask that, and the first plant was in Flint, and I forget where the second one was. I can go back through the tour and find that.
But all Corvettes today are made there in Kentucky, right?
That is correct.
That is okay. Well, what was your most favorite part about the museum? I would love to know, is the sinkhole area restored to its original livery, or is there still a hole in the floor that you can look down, or what?
Yes to both. They have done a magnificent job. They've included a big presentation, as you might imagine, about the sinkhole and what happened and how they fixed it into the tour. And so you walk into the spire portion of the museum. That's the big yellow spire with a big red pointy thing going up. And that's where the event happened, kind of offset from that red spire, a big section that they have cordoned off and a big presentation. They walk you through how it happened with video clips and some computer animation of what they think actually happened under the floor on that date so early in the morning. At 5:30 something in the morning is when it happened, so thankfully nobody was in the building, and they're all grateful about that. But they go through the entire process of how they fixed it, what happened. Bowling Green itself sort of lays on top of a cave system underground, and so it's not common to have sinkholes in the area, but what is uncommon is one of that size. And so all the right ingredients came together, and the floor just kind of gave way under the pressure over time. But they, to fix it, went in and they sprayed gunite after they got the cars out, on the walls, kind of that swimming pool material to hold everything in place before the repairs could begin. And then millions of tons of concrete and sand and filler material went in. The original pilings for that part of the building were 30 feet or so down into the earth. These new ones are a couple of 100 feet down into the earth, down to bedrock. So whatever happened there will not happen there again. Is probably, as the tour guide said, the safest place in Bowling Green to stand.
Probably one of the more famous ones is the Blue Devil Corvette, the 2009 ZR1. And when they pulled it out, it fired back up. Like they put a battery on it and it ran. Like they drove it out. That's awesome.
Yes. There's a piece of the display that talks about that. I believe, in fact, in the video clip, it shows them firing it up. And, of course, everybody was elated. And it's kind of, okay, we haven't lost anything, that we can't replace somehow. The car's still there. As you said many times, it doesn't matter the state of the car sometimes of how you build it or what condition it's in. The heart of the car is there, and I believe that's in the heart of the people at the museum and of General Motors. While it's still not in one piece as you would like, it's still here, and it's still a part of our heritage.
Corvettes to me are cool, but I've never lusted after one. I've never really sought to have one. They sure set the standard for the parts that we rob for pro touring cars. There's no question about that. Are you a Corvette guy? Is that your thing?
Up until recently, I've never really been a Corvette guy. I've admired them. I understand their importance. I understand their function. But I'm kind of like you. I've never actually wanted to own one for some reason. I think that's kind of changing. They are quite impressive machines after you see what all goes into them and the technology that's built in and the influences that they have. It's an impressive car, no doubt, from stem to stern. It's something worth wanting to own. You understand the passion, then, of the Corvette owner, why they're so vehemently attached to their cars once you go through and take the tour. And I'm sure if you were to own one and want to go through the plant and take the tour, and, in fact, even, as some people do, build, watch their car being built, going down the assembly line, you can have your engine built with an associate. You can build your own motor.
That'd be fun.
Have your name etched into the motor along with your technician at the end of the day. That's pretty cool stuff. So You can buy a car from the 60 grand range to 150 grand in the Corvette line. So to make a car of that quality and that prestige, that accessible, I think that's some of the key of the Corvette, at least as the tour taker looking in. And so all the Corvette owners are going, yeah, you dummy, that's exactly it. So
it is still one of those cars, and you look at it, and I mean, they're $78,000 is not exactly chump change. But the closest thing you can buy to it performance-wise is well into the six figures. It's still a value for the money. And it's still a great thing that it's around. You just saw the news today about Ford reducing 10% of its workforce. I mean, halo cars like the Corvette, the Mustang, the Camaro, the Challenger, these are cars we want to hang on to as long as we possibly can. And those are the cars that the bean counters look to get rid of. Cool, man. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your trip. We're going to run a Dukes of Hazzard interview now, which has nothing to do with Corvettes, but it has a whole lot to do with cars with heart, so that's good.
That is good. I forgot to mention, you asked me my favorite part of the tour, and I believe something I was not aware of at all, that Zora Duntov, of course, who was the father of the vet in the beginning, his ashes are located in a Zora Duntov display area. And
Really?
They're in a gold box in a Zora Duntov area. There's some pictures we can include in the show links of that. And I thought that was pretty impressive. He and his wife are both part now of the Corvette Museum.
That's remarkable. He really is permanently attached to Corvette. Okay. I didn't know that one either. Well, cool, man. Great talking to you, and have a good rest of your trip, and I will talk to you as soon as you get back.
Thanks again. It's been a great opportunity, and come when you're able.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that was Bernie at the Corvette Museum. So let me get to the interview with John Burns. Before I do that, though, I'm putting out a little bonus. We're not getting paid for this one, but I want to encourage you to really check it out. A bonus ad for Stamps.com. If you listened to last week's show, you heard us announce that. And it's cool that a company like Stamps is coming back to us. They tried us way back in the Kibbe and Finnegan days. But if you are a parts seller, especially, this is a good deal for you. You need to check this out. Go to Stamps.com, and when you go to buy your membership, you get a 4-week trial. And the 4-week trial is free if you use our code. That's KAFS. They give you a little scale that you can use to weigh your postage. This is the whole deal that allows you to somewhat automate the cost of shipping. How's the best way to... You can print out the shipping and stick it on the box and have weighed the box and have never gone to the post office to do this. That's the whole point. And you can tie in a lot of your electronic stuff if you are a wizard and you like to ship multiple things per week. This is a Corndog type of move here, right? This is what Corndog would do. Because as you know, Corndog will find the most cost-effective way to do stuff. I think that's the nice way to say it. And this is a Corndog move. So be like Corndog. Go to Stamps.com and enter the code KAFS. They track this stuff. And if you support it, if this is a good fit for you, they'll keep supporting us and stay with our show. That's important. All right, let's go to John Burns here, and this will probably take us all the way through the end of the show. Happy Memorial Day to you all. And if you're a Patreon listener, send in your questions over there. And if you haven't joined Patreon yet, we'd love it if you do. Patreon.com/KAFS. Have a good holiday, everybody. Talk to you in June.
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm.
Today, our guest is John Burns, owner of one of the Jump General Lees from the 2005 Dukes of Hazzard movie. You know where I'm going with this, don't you? Now, John's car was rebuilt after the jump, and today it rides and drives yet again. So I thought we'd get together here with John, learn more about the car, more about movie generalities in general, so to speak, and mainly just kind of geek out. So, John, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me on here. It's great to be here.
You are very welcome. Well, I mentioned to you before we started our recording here, I never know what's going to happen when I reach out to somebody that I have never been introduced to in any way, shape, or form. Before we even get to talking about your General Lee, could you tell me a little bit about yourself? All I know about you is that you write a really good eBay listing, and that's why I wanted to find out about you. Where are you from, and when did you get into the Dukes of Hazzard so much?
Gosh, I'm from all over, actually. My dad was in the military, and, of course, I got into Dukes of Hazzard when I was 5, watching that pilot episode, and seeing that General Lee 1, jumping over that dirt pile over Roscoe's car. It was just hooked from then on. Couldn't get enough of it.
So you're a kid of the 80s then? or 70s?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, Knight Rider, the Dukes of Hazzard, the A-Team, anything that had fast cars that were doing all kinds of really cool stunts.
Ooh, we're a kindred spirit here. You probably got into that as a kid, and then since that show has been in syndication, and is still on TV now, you've probably maintained your fondness for it. Do you have kids now?
Oh, absolutely. I have a beautiful daughter, Rebecca, who's 12, and my son, Michael, who's 14, who got his first. I mean, he was really, really influential and helpful in building that car back up. So his first engine he installed was that engine in that General Lee, and he's probably the only guy in his school, probably in this state, that can say that.
Probably so. Where do you live?
I live in South Mississippi. If, you know, there's a map that has a space that says the middle of nowhere, okay, we're kind of a suburb of that.
Suburb of middle of nowhere.
Yeah, we're outside of nowhere. We're not even up to nowhere standards yet.
Okay.
But a little bitty town called Carrier, Mississippi. If you blink, you'll miss it.
And you mentioned before the interview you were directly in the path of Hurricane Katrina, and your house went under Katrina directly for 8 hours.
We are about 30 miles due north of where that storm actually landed. And we had 8 hours of full hurricane winds here, and the eye passed right over our house. We had just finished building it, too, and the house did extremely well, but, I mean, the damage around us was pretty bad here, but, the further south you went, it was just devastation. But we did very good, very blessed.
Gee, that is for sure. Okay, so what do you do for a living then?
I work at the John C. Stennis Space Center, and I do engineering design work.
No kidding.
Yes, so I've had the only General Lee on a NASA test site, which is kind of funny when you drive up to the guard gate and have to show your badge there with your security clearance and you're in the General Lee, right? You know? And the look on the guy's face is hilarious.
This is getting better and better. You almost got me sucked into detracting into NASA. I'm also kind of a space geek, but let me start with, I'm going to read you a little bit of your ad. You know this well, but this will set it up for the listeners here. So here's how it starts. It says, this is General Lee number 51 from the 2005 Dukes of Hazzard movie. Number 51 was the car that did the driven courthouse jump used at the end of the movie. It is also the car seen in Mopar Collector's Guide and Hot Rod magazine in several issues. In fact, the January 2008 issue of Hot Rod, which was the 65th anniversary issue, counted the top 100 hot rods of all time. Number 1 was the General Lee, and the picture was a 2-page spread of my car, this car. This car was built to fly. There are only around 50 or so known real Generals left in the world. That is the TV series and movie cars combined. There's just too much history and detail to type about this car. I could go on for hours. If you are as crazy about the Dukes as we have been, this is your chance to own a real General Lee. So, let's start there. I guess my first question would be, by the way, I still have that January 2008 issue. I kept that one.
You know who told me about that issue?
No.
When I got the car, the first thing I did was to start looking up everything I could about it. I wanted to know why this piece was put here, why this was there. Doing engineering work, I wanted to know everything about it because I was terrified that I'd cut something out or move it out the way to put something in and I'd ruin it.
Mm-hmm.
In doing that, I got on the internet. I knew that Mark Hager was the stuntman that jumped the car.
Okay.
So I Googled his name, and I found his website for Dangerous Moments, which was his stunt company that he had done, and I just hit the contact us thing, and just out of the blue said, look, I emailed a picture to it. I own this car now. He emailed me back, sent me pictures of the car on set with him, and started telling me things about it. I got to talk to him on the phone. He told me to get the January 2008 issue of Hot Rod magazine, and lo and behold, that's what it was. So it was actually the stuntman himself that told me to get that.
No kidding.
Really nice guy. I love stunt guys. I've met many actors, and they're all good, but the stunt guys that really do those things that we just love, especially with cars, are really down-to-earth, regular people. And you can hang out with them, talk to them. They're really interested in people that love their work and recognize them, because they're usually the unknown stuntman that, makes the actor look good.
That's right.
And he was no disappointment. Really nice guy.
I've had Corey Eubanks on the show about a year ago, and he was the series driver. Who is Mark Hager? What else has he done?
He was in The Matrix Reloaded. I want to say he was in one of the scenes where he was one of the agents, you know, and he was in, I guess, an elevator or something that exploded or something.
Okay.
But he's done a lot of different movies like that. His big car stunt that he does, if you've ever seen, you know, them use a pipe ramp, that's the ramp that they hit that flips the car over.
Yep.
He puts that on the end of a 6-foot car ramp, hits it about 60 miles an hour, and the car flies off spiraling like a football.
Right.
With explosives going off. And if you get a chance to, you can probably go to his Dangerous Moments website, and you can get a video that he's done. And he sent me a copy of it called Brotherhood of Destruction. And it's just about an hour of every car you can imagine flying through the air, exploding, you know, I mean, just all kinds of crazy specialty type things.
Cool.
That you just don't see.
Well, let's start at the top with the car. You say this is generally number 51. What makes it number 51?
Whenever a film is being made, they've got to keep track of all these things they're purchasing for this movie. In the case of the TV series, they might have like WGL 57 might be one of the cars. That was Warner Brothers, generally number 57. When they did the movie, they just numbered whatever car that they bought in the order that they bought it. So my car was the 51st car they purchased.
Okay.
And that's General Lee's police cars, Daisy Jeeps, Uncle Jesse trucks, and all that combined. You know, it was just the 51st vehicle they purchased. So it was number 51.
Got it. How many General Lees specifically were used in that movie?
27, I believe.
How many of those survived?
I mean, in some form, they all did. They were all destroyed, except for the hero cars.
Okay.
People like me, my car was destroyed.
Right.
So we'll take them and put them back together. So there are people that have the process bucks. A guy I know in Massachusetts has one of them, and it was just a half a car. They cut the whole front of the car off of it, and they rigged it up with cameras for special effects shots. He's since clipped another car to it and rebuilt it, and it's a full car again, and bought leftover crash parts from the movie set and rebuilt it so it looks like a crash stunt car now.
Were there any TV General Lees used in that movie?
There were 2 from the series, and I think there were 2 or 3 TV reunion cars. And a friend of mine owns one of those reunion cars. It was the jump car used in the very last TV reunion.
All right.
Hazard in Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
I think they called it. And they used it as one of those process bucks. It was buckled in the front and the rear from the Lenny, so they cut the front and the back off, and they just used it for static green screen shots. And like I said, they used, I think it was about 3 reunion cars on top of that.
I went and read up on the original TV cars when it was discovered that they were still around, you know, the 17 or 19 or 20. Yep. How many of the original TV cars were left after the TV series ended, do you know?
There were 19 officially left.
Okay.
A few have popped up since then. They kind of escaped the crusher, but of course 17 of those cars were sold off to the Dodge Charger Registry, a Mopar club, back in the early 90s, and that's where the General Lee cars kind of got out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
They kept 2 of them, and it was those 2 cars that they used in the movie.
Got it.
Which unfortunately means they repainted them. They were still bearing their original TV series paint job up until then.
And are the movie General Lees a different color of orange?
I think in the TV series they used, a lot of the cars were painted a Corvette Flame Red. 1975 Corvette Flame Red is the color they were using because it was easy. And I think all they did was just take a paint chip book and they matched it up. So I think the color they used is called Big Bad Orange. It's an AMC color.
Okay.
But it's same. You put one next to the other, you can't tell the difference.
Ah, okay. Got it. Well, let's talk about what your General was built to do. So for a lot of people that have seen that movie, you'll remember that the General Lee in the beginning of the movie is a kind of a dull orange Charger. It's a different configuration of car. And then towards the middle to the end of the movie, it looks like the General Lee we all know and love. Did your car do both duties, or was it just built to jump?
Specifically for that one jump.
Got it.
It was the driven jumper. And, of course, each car is built for a specific purpose. They did repaint a couple of those cars and use them as both, but they were mostly either a special effects shot car or they were a car that was used for, hard driving. But no, my car was specifically and always the General Lee, as you see it in that picture.
Okay. Who built that car? And, feel free to go into detail on the build itself, because in the eBay write-up, you mentioned that the car was built to fly. Everything was braced, plated, barred, Absolutely. You name it.
That was the most heavily reinforced General Lee ever built. I can say that with a large degree of certainty. It was built by A.J. Thrasher. A.J. Thrasher was the man that built those jump cars we used to watch fly across the screen as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And they hired him to do the movie. That's his specialty, is caging those things out. And the caging is very, very similar to what they used on the TV series, with the exception on the TV series, they caged it right there in the area where the driver sat. Whenever you saw the generally land, you always saw the front end buckle up and all that. That was done on purpose. They didn't want to reinforce all that. They needed that cushioning for the driver. The hardware didn't matter because 69 Chargers were a dime a dozen back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
This car, the roll caging was bumper to bumper, all the way through, tied directly into the framing. The underside of the car, everything was steel plated. The K-member had 3/8 steel plating up underneath it. There was 1/4 inch and 3/8 steel plating underneath all the framing components. It had 3/8 plating around all the torque boxes. It had 2x2 by 1/4 inch square steel tubing that was being used as subframe connectors. And I mean, every inch of this car, from bumper to bumper, it was a jungle gym on wheels. And nothing was left to the original engineering of the car, not even the driver's seat. If you looked at the driver's seat, it looks like it's just bolted to the floor like a factory seat. It doesn't even touch the car body. There's actually structural steel running along the floor, and if you peel the carpet back that I put in there, you can see all this flat bar steel running from one edge of the roll cage to the other, and there's an angle iron pedestal welded to it with a seat attached to that. So you can literally stick your hand underneath it. You know, it's suspended above the car body.
No kidding.
So nothing was left to trust. You know, being that I do engineering stuff and I've designed, platforms and stuff like that, I was fascinated with why was this bar put here. You know, there's a big piece of steel plating welded on the passenger side up underneath the hood of the car. It looks almost like you'd think that would be a battery tray, the way it was sitting there, but it was a really, like, almost an inch thick piece of steel plating. Couldn't for the life of me figure out why that was there. And then it dawned on me. The driver sits on the driver's side.
Mm-hmm.
There were pieces of extra steel that were just welded into the car on the passenger side. And if you add up the weight of those pieces of steel, it adds up almost to the weight of a person. So
ballast.
To balance it out.
Yeah. Does it have bars under the fenders and things like that all the way around as well?
It didn't go into the fender welds. It actually went straight to the front bumper because the way the car was designed, it was to go up and, of course, to hit the ground. They did have cars that had bars up into the fender welds that were designed for running into things.
Okay.
And that was to keep the sheet metal from blocking the tires, which would then, make the car uncontrollable.
Right.
This thing was straight line, hit the ground, fly, crash, land.
My memory is fuzzy on this. I remember just from reading from Hot Rod Magazine. I know that it was jumped one time, the car went up, the car went down, landed,
Yep.
And was that jump the jump from the movie, or was the jump from the movie a couple of jumps put together?
It was 3 cars put together to make that one jump scene.
No kidding.
Mine was the driven jumper. Mine had a camera mounted on the side of the car towards the back, so that you get that classic general Lee shot looking down the side of the car as it's flying through the air.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way you can tell my car. My car is the car that you see hit the ramp. They actually superimposed, Sean William Scott's face in it. There's multiple different shots that they used from these 3 cars jumping, but my car was one. It did the main driven jump. They had a car number 6, I believe it was, that was just an empty sling car, had nobody in it. They could just launch it, and it could crash, and nobody cared. And then the 3rd car was the soft jump car, and all it did was jump. It's just a car, all you do is see it hit the ground. It's the one that you always see skipping away without a scratch.
Right, the little landing at the end. Memory serves, it kind of landed on its right side a little bit.
Yeah, my car went heavy on the left side, I promise, yeah.
So it landed, and then you say in the listing here, I think there's a picture of it after the jump in the Hot Rod Magazine episode. That car was rebuilt again to be a sling car, but it never got slung. Why was that?
The car was still running. They actually drove it to the end of the block, and he turned the engine off. It was still running. They were actually going to turn around and jump it again later that day. Of course, you notice how the front end's all bent up looking.
Mm-hmm.
And I got in touch with Elia Popov. He's the guy that runs JEM Special Effects which is the company that did that movie. Another really nice guy talked to me. He sent me about 24 pictures of the car behind the scenes. He told me that the engine, they discovered the engine had a crack in the block. So they said, look, they pulled the engine out of the car, and they were just going to they had good luck with the sling cars, so they rigged it all up to be a sling jumper. They just kind of pulled the front end out a little bit as much as they could, dressed it up a little bit. And he even told me that they had made a cutout of A.J. Thrasher's profile and set it in the car so that when they jumped it, it would be the quote-unquote last flight of A.J. Thrasher, which I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
What happened was my car was set to do the jump. They had 3 cars lined up. You know, they had the test car just to test it out. They had my car. Then they had a backup car in case the first 2 failed. And the test car, which was number 6, did it perfectly. And they said, you know, we're not going to sling it. It made that beautiful shot, but when it landed, there was nobody driving. You know, they had remote brakes on it, but it, you know, swerved and hit a tree. Whereas my car was still relatively in one piece and got shipped back to California.
You said the number 6 had remote brakes on it? Really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they had rigged mine up with that too. If you look real closely at the picture of my car, it might be in that ad, you'll notice that they cut the tip of the brake pedal off of it. So it's just a rod sticking underneath there.
Huh.
Because it was a pneumatic thing that would just jam the brake pedal is all it was.
No kidding. The next thing that happened after that movie ended is everything got shipped to California, you said?
Yep. In fact, on the original windshield that was on it, you could still kind of read, you know, where it had number 051 Los Angeles written on it. They shipped it all back there, and when they did that second Dukes movie, that Dukes the Beginning or whatever, basically all they did was just scrounge together enough parts and enough working cars and then run them through for that thing. So they actually stripped my car almost completely when they did that. So my car was just a shell with black rims on it. So
for that second movie, which was honestly not very good.
I didn't even bother watching it.
It's not worth your time. But for that one, all the cars in there were leftovers from the first movie, right? Was there anything new for that?
They were.
Okay. And then at what point did those things hit the market? Because at some point you bought this car. Yep.
They sold all those crashed cars at the what they call a GAC auction, General Auction Company or something in California, and they sold them all off. So they were sold parts only. They didn't have any titles with them, and it was a dealers only auction. And a guy named Jay Orberg bought that car. Bought a bunch of General Lees actually from that set. Jay Orberg used to build. I think he built the Super Pursuit mode version of Kit.
Oh, okay.
And Knight Rider. That was one of his things. He's a car collector. He has all kinds of really cool cars, really funny cars. You know, really, you know, something that looks like the Pink Panther on wheels, he'll have it. If you go to his website, I think it's jayorberg.com, look at the cars he's had, there's a picture of him standing next to my car at the auction when he bought it all. And, of course, there's no hood on the car, and it's all dilapidated and destroyed looking. But you can tell that is number 51 right there. You can see all that roll caging up in it, and they had relocated the weight box from the trunk into the engine bay. And I ended up taking it out and putting it back in the trunk, and it lined right up with the cut marks. I just welded it back in place.
Jay Orberg bought this car, and then did you buy it from him?
I bought it from a guy in Branson, Missouri. He ended up with several of them. He ran a company called, I think it was Hollywood Rockin' Country or something like that. And he bought several of those cars. So several of the authentic movie General Lees that are out there came from him. And I was able to verify through him that, yes, this was exactly what it was. And luckily, the guy that had it didn't know as much about it as I did. So I still paid a pretty penny for it, even as a wrecked stunt car. But considering what the car was, you know, he didn't know that it was in Hot Rod Magazine, and he only knew about the Mopar Collector's Guide thing. So you say the hood was off. What all else was not on it? Did it still have fenders or a roof or doors or what? Yeah, it was fenders. Yeah, it was a stripped out shell of a car. It was basically a rolling chassis. Okay. They had taken the Vector rims off of it and put, you know, just the black pre-cooler rims on it, just the black rims. Of course, the car never had an interior in it. But obviously they couldn't remove the seat because all that stuff was welded in place. Right. But somebody had removed the gas cap off of it. I had to get one from year one for it. You know, just, it was a complete shell of a car. Now, looking at the pictures, the grill, is that a false grill that's on there? That is a copied piece of fiberglass.
Uh-huh.
If you're going to take a car and launch it, and destroy it like that, the last thing you want to do is put a $2,000 '69 Charger grill in it.
That's right.
So literally, it looks like they did was they took a grill, taped it off on the inside, made a fiberglass mold of it, and then made a copy off of that. And the chrome is tape. It's actually metal tape.
Okay. Well,
it looks great from a distance, but you get up close to it, you can tell.
This generally is one of the few, maybe the only, that really has a door welded shut. Is that true?
It is the only one that ever had a door welded shut. It was certainly the only one on the movie, and I was talking with a man named Tom Sarmento. Tom Sarmento was the chief mechanic on the Dukes of Hazzard TV series.
Mm-hmm.
He and A.J. Thrasher were neck and neck working on and building those cars. They never welded the door shut on any of their cars, the jump ones or any of them, and the reason being is if they had a serious accident, they needed to get the guy out fast.
Right.
So they needed to be able to get to him. And the way my car is done, the cage, it's almost like a NASCAR cage in some ways, where it has, bars all throughout that door right there. Literally, they cut the whole door apart to do that, and they just simply welded the piece shut.
Okay. Because, there's no point. It's all cage behind the door anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just a waffle grid of steel.
So once you got the car, had it been rebuilt, or did you do the rebuilding? Because now today it's a shiny orange Charger again.
The paint job had already been done. I think Jay Orberg did that, but it was just painted orange when he sold it off to the guy I got it from. Put a set of graphics on it. It was just, a bent car that had a slick paint job on it. That was about it.
Okay.
Body work, stunt car body work still. First thing I did was straighten the frame out on it because it was bent pretty good, and just rebuild everything. They had actually taken a Sawzall to the dashboard and cut everything from where the dash pad is down away. So from the front, you could see the top of the dash pad where the vents were, but there was nothing in the car. You were just looking at the firewall. And they did that because when the floorboards buckle on those cars, it tends to send the stunt guy's knee up into the dashboard.
Oh, I see.
So I actually hand-built all that you see in the pictures. I measured a factory dash and built a little bit of framing, and then built a dash built the rest of it so it would attach to what was left of the original without messing it up. Because to me, all that stuff's important to be able to say I can take it right back and put it exactly as it was on set.
Yeah, definitely. Did it still have the cracked block motor in it, or was it that all gone?
No, that was long gone. It had a big hook welded down there, so we took a torch and cut that section out so that the engine would sit back down in it. The only things I removed from the car were really just things associated with that sling jump conversion that it never did.
Mm-hmm.
It never did it, therefore that's really not much of its history. And we put that 440 in it, my son and I did, with the transmission and all. We were building our own General Lee replica at the time.
Yep.
And we had everything done to the car except the paint job. And after about several months of looking at the two cars side by side and realizing it was going to cost a year's worth of wages to build this car up piece by piece, we just pulled everything out of the other car. And then I sold that empty body off for almost as much as I bought the car for.
Cool.
So it worked out great. And like I said, we did all kinds of stuff with that car, met all kinds of people. It was great.
Okay, I have some just general questions for you. May or may not have anything to do with your car or not. I have no idea. 69 Chargers, I don't know this. Do they have side marker lights, or are they side marker reflectors?
They are side marker lights, but the General Lee, they always deleted them out because,
right.
Yeah, using a mixture of 68, 69s, they were different on both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Easier, instead of making one look like the other, just get rid of them.
You always see those missing. You generally see the backup lights in the rear valence panel. Those are usually gone. What do they do with the wires on the other side? Do they just clip them off?
They yank every bit of wiring out of them. There wasn't, when the car was being used as a stunt car, it probably had one wire going to the alternator, one going to the battery, basically, just nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I actually just bought a Ken Armstrong wiring kit and just put brand new wiring throughout the whole car.
Okay.
So I could get all that going again.
The push bar on your car, the push bars in the movie, while they are wide, the average guy would probably never know the difference. Are they just a little narrower than the TV cars were?
They are the same ones that they used in the TV reunions. They are about the same width as the wide push bar from the TV series.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you had the narrow push bar earlier on.
Right.
And I want to say the width dimension is very close. The TV series push bars went all the way up underneath the car and were welded to the framing underneath, and they were usually, tack welded or so to the front of the car as well.
Mm-hmm.
These things just have tabs on them, and they bolt straight to the front bumper. So you can actually slap it and it shakes.
Oh, okay. So it's cosmetic.
Just a prop.
Got it. What else is different about the movie car versus the TV car that comes to mind? The roll cage is different, but it had white letter BF Goodrich tires on it.
Yep.
But otherwise, there really wasn't much.
They were very good. That was one thing I really liked about what they did. They didn't bow down to changing the car too much. They kept it true to what it was. The difference is, right off the bat, you don't have the vinyl trim mold on the back sail panels like the TV series cars had.
Yep.
The movie cars had 15-inch rims, whereas usually the series cars were 14-inch rims, or a combination of 14 and 15 in the back for some of the hard-driven cars.
Mm-hmm. The movie cars had the different wheel and maybe a CD player or a shifter or something. Yeah. The interior color itself, is that white or is it cream color? What color is that?
Light saddle tan, I think, is what they call it. And you can actually order that from Legendary Interiors.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually buy them. They actually ordered their stuff from Legendary. So I ordered mine from them, too.
Got it. This car, just has the one seat, no passenger seat. Mm-hmm. I know you mentioned that you chose not to cut all the bracing out on the passenger side to do that. What are you going to do with this car now? Have you already sold it? I didn't even ask you that. Do you still own the car?
The car left this morning.
No kidding.
I was very depressed.
What? How about the timing on that? So who did another Dukes of Hazzard fan buy the car, I hope?
Yeah, well, I must say yes. The guy doesn't. He's not much of a talker, but yeah, how can you not be? I know that he's had several cars, so he basically collects them. So that's got to be a prize addition to any collection, I think.
Sure. So you mentioned that before the interview started, you have children, you have priorities in life, and can't keep all the toys, and that's why this General had to go. Is that right?
Absolutely. And let's face it, the car was here because of them. To have the kids to be able to experience something that, when I was a kid, if my dad showed up with the General Lee, he would have, of course, he's king anyways, but I would have been the hottest kid in the whole neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I wanted my kids to be able to enjoy things like that. They got to meet Corey Eubanks, Al Wyatt Jr., all the stunt guys from the series, the actors. We've done all kinds of things. I've got pictures of James Best talking to my daughter, stuff that nobody really gets to do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Are you ever going to get another one again? Do you have any other cars?
Oh, Lord willing, I'm sure hoping to. It's like DT's withdrawal, You've got to have your General Lee. I do have a Knight Rider replica, it's a great car, but, the General Lee was king.
Mm-hmm. No, I know exactly what you mean. I really do.
Yes.
Have you had any other movie cars besides this one?
That's the only actual film car I've ever had. And I must say it's the first one because, like I said, there are a lot of movie cars I'd love to own, and I don't mind taking one that's been destroyed and then rebuilding it and making it nice.
Very good. Well, John, if people, just want to talk to you and know what it was like, would you like them to contact you, or would you like them to go through me?
I'm happy with it. I'd be honest with you, I love talking to people about the car. I used to take it to car shows and just spend hours showing it off to people.
Sure. What's the best way then? You want email or phone?
I just email.
What is your email address then?
It is JNJBYRNES @yahoo.com.
JNJBYRNES @yahoo.com.
Yes, sir.
Well, John, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for indulging me, personally. And
no problem.
I'll bet you get another one. And then maybe you can help me find one someday, too. So that'd be great.
Well, I'll tell you what, maybe one day I'm going to have that series one I've been chasing all these years. It's always just too expensive.
They are pretty expensive. Okay.
Oh, and then they go up. The more I think I'm making, the higher that price seems to go.
That's right.